my wife and her best friend argue for hours about all the scenarios that go through how they can survive this zombie apocalypse. And I have to point out that they would be the first ones fucking dead. And secondly, it's it's not real, you idiots.
Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. My name is Andy, and the fellow over there is John, and we get together and we discuss music. Specifically, we offer up one another a song, the other goes off and gives it a listen, and then we come back and discuss the song, the band, the album, all the important stuff. You got it. John, you're up to bat, man. What are you going to offer up me to go off and listen to?
Okay, so I've got a track by a band, Swirlies.
Oh, yes. Oh,
You
okay.
familiar with them?
Yes, I am. Actually, you kind of beat me to the punch on this one, but I've only have 3 tracks off of that album downloaded. That album is what is it? Blonder Tongue Audio Baton or something like that? Is that the name of that album?
Just trips off the tongue.
Yeah, it does. It rolls right off the tongue. The Blonder Tongue Audio Baton. I have 3 tracks off that. Someone told me to go check that album out like 15 years ago at least. And I dipped into it, but I did that rush thing where you give like each song like 15 to 30 seconds of breathing room, and then you're like, all right, make a note. And yeah, I've got a few of them down, but I don't know what's the track that you wanted me to check out off of this one?
So probably the one that most people, will go to is Pancake. You familiar
Yeah,
with Pancake?
that was the
Yeah, it's
first
not
one
that
that
one.
I marked.
That's not that one.
Okay.
I picked a song called Jeremy Parker.
Okay, Jeremy Parker. I don't think I at least listened to 15 to 30 seconds of the song at some point 15 years ago. So that's my probably the extent of my experience with it. So God knows if any of this will even ring a bell. But yeah, let me go off and give it a listen, and I'll come back and let you know what I think of it now, at least 15 years later. And I've listened to Swirlies before. I've listened to songs off this album. I may have even listened to this album once a long time ago and picked the songs that stood out to me upon just that one run through and downloaded them. And this one I didn't think at the time made the cut. I don't this song is not familiar to me at least, trying to sift through my memories of the album. But I'm finding upon this listen that like I'm loving the drums. The drums throughout the whole thing sound really great. There's some interesting shit on the guitar that they're doing with like strum rapidity and then falling back on that, and the bass is doing a lot of fun stuff. Really, the rhythm section is great. The guitars at times are doing stuff. It's also like, as I know this band can get, they can build on sound and sound and sound, and sometimes depending on your judgment when you're doing something, stuff can get lost, can get muddled a little bit. I'm not saying that that's happening a lot here, but there are times where I'm like, I just shift to listening to the rhythm section because the sound, that 90s fuzz distortion, which there's nothing more powerful than 90s fuzz distortion, is really pressing and asserting itself. But the drums have this really muscular edge to them, and I really, really like them a lot. But they play with this thing too, where vocally they're like, they're portraying sort of this tranquil kind of sound, and the music is anything but, right? Especially that like that repeated part. So I just think that that's kind of an interesting choice where you're you're creating a lot of sound musically, and some of it again very muscular, very in your face. But you've got this like subdued vocal harmony stuff happening, that does sound very tranquil and calm, and it just kind of makes me smile because there's some irony in the mixing of those two things. But yeah, I'm digging this a lot so far. Let's continue to press on.
Going to jump the shit, and I'll kick the shit out of any cocksucker.
You tell them. Yeah, this was that latter part of the song was really, really fun, where they started to tinker around and do some musical shit there. Almost had like shades of like this industrial beat to it, and some really interesting like syncopation stuff that they've done. They did throughout this tune with the way the drums and the guitar were hitting at the same time throughout. I really liked that part a lot too. Yeah, this is a good song. I'm ashamed to say that I overlooked this one. I don't know if it's as good as like a couple of the tracks that I have off of my Pancake comes to mind. I really enjoy that tune. But I don't know. I think I definitely give this at least a second or third listen to determine whether or not I would download it and add it to the list for these guys. This very small list I have in my library, but I do like this track a lot. Let's get back to John and discuss it and the band some more.
So you're back. You've listened to the tales of Peter's rather awkward cousin, Jeremy. What do you think?
Yeah, this one I liked it a lot. I didn't love it. And there were parts of it that were fabulous and other parts where it's and this is a symptom of not just of this song, but I think of a lot of songs in this genre where things can get muddied because of all the sound that's being like compressed and like just foisted upon the listener. This song was like 85%. I didn't have any issues with it, with the amount of that or that sort of issue where I was being bombarded with sounds that I found difficult to sift through. I would still like listen to this song again for sure. In fact, I want to, because that's another thing with this kind of music. You listen to it one time, you're doing yourself a bit of a disservice. And I wish I could have told myself that 15, 17 years ago, whatever it was, when I listened to this and was like full-heartedly giving each track 15 to 30 seconds to capture my attention, when really it needs a full listen and then another 2 more full listens really before you know if this is something you want to permanently put on a playlist or whatever. Or if you want to invest in or a download or whatever. So I like it enough to want to revisit it and to probably want to download the song, because even the parts that I felt like were too much or a lot at once to try to be able to just be like sift through and come back and tell you exactly what I thought of it. Some of those will probably grow on me. You know what I mean? Like I'll begin to like it as I absorb it more and let it wash over me more. So I would say it's like a strong B+ with me, this tune. And it kicks off like being thrown into the deep end of a swimming pool, fully clothed, not in your swimming trunks. It's loud and fully realized from the word go, which is like can really sweep you up. You know what I mean? There's no easing you into this. No appetizer with this track. So we get crashing guitars and thunderous drum work and rolls before easing into the verse. And there's something odd to me, or at least ironic, about this super fuzzed out, almost loud but lo-fi sound to the music when compared to what is it, Damon Tutungian? Is that the guy? And the female vocalist is Shauna something. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the two of them combining to like put lyrics and vocals into these verses. They're like light and subdued in their delivery, but the music is so antithetical to the word subdued or light that it kind of just made me, the corner of my mouth turn up a little bit with some like a wry smile, thinking, okay, this is an interesting dynamic they're playing with. Also, I couldn't help but think. We were discussing earlier the Wendy's, and you were like, the bands like these sort of were kneecapped by the emergence of 90s grunge, and I know this isn't grunge, but it does have something that grunge has, and it has it in fucking spades. And that's that fuzzed out guitar that swallowed the jangly guitar whole, like Jonah in the Whale. Like this is 90s, muffed, clearly just overdrive distortion at its peak. And it's just a tour de force in the song, how like fuzzed out it is. And it's like fun. There's this, it's undefeated 90s distortion. You hear it, you know exactly what it is the moment you hear it. So yeah, I enjoyed that. It was kind of fun, like a warm hug from a very burly friend. Around the 1 minute mark, we're introduced to the first time to this pounding rhythmic portion that repeats itself several times, not only in its appearance but in its appearances. Like when you hear it, it does that part a few times, and it does that part as a whole a couple more times at least throughout the track. The drums really shine during this part, but there's this really interesting effect on the guitar. And it is most stark at the end of each repetition. Like as you hear that last, like da 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 da, and it ends, you hear that last bit of this like metallic industrial sounding guitar kind of resonate underneath the thunderous drums. And it's just an interesting sound and effect, and it grew on me the more and more I heard it. And I wish that I had heard it more throughout the whole song, though it does kind of make an appearance a bit later. So we are treated to another verse before the song returns to this pounding, bombastic musical refrain that I just alluded to. And after which the song downshifts with loose shuffling drums and some eerie counting by your lady Shauna here. And that was a little disconcerting. The song picks up with some affected guitar riffing that is matched by the rhythm section. And after a bit, the guitars form a larger sound, with one providing a really fuzzed out wall sound over like top of which the other does this bit of higher registered work. But not before forgive me, does the higher register work before abruptly coming to an end, but not before the idle threat of physical violence from an inebriated man at the end of the tune, which is an interesting little sample that they put in there. But yeah, that a bit of affected guitar that was used later in this song kind of harkened back to that industrial effect that you heard in the pounding portion of the tune. And I really did like that a lot. And I must say that despite not really recalling listening to this song, and therefore also not recalling why I left it off my list of songs to download, I enjoyed most of it, as I said earlier, and likely will revisit it in the future. I know this album is a bit of a like cult classic. It's certainly one of probably the pinnacle like shoegazy type albums that came out of its time. I don't know what other subgenres. There is some lo-fi to it for sure. I wouldn't necessarily call it grunge, but it does lean into that early 90s heavy like distortion that we talked about. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It didn't grab me like Pancakes does, but or like Pancake did, but it is a good song, and I'm glad you gave me a reason to reevaluate it, and further reason to probably reevaluate this album as a whole, sans the songs I am familiar with at this point.
Oh, cool. Yeah, regarding this song, I'll get into the band in a second and this album. Yeah, I prefer this to Pancake, to be honest with you. It's just personal taste, you know. And I think it's probably been proven over the number of songs we've given each other in the past that I think, and it's quite right, that I think you and I assimilate music in a slightly different way. Your approach and my approach, which is, you know, so there'll be some songs which I just don't get and you will get like that, and vice versa. I think this is in my sweet spot for some reason. This horrible, distorted, noisy shit I can take on board all day long. It's just, you know, it's just the makeup of my brain. And I will say the sound of this, just absolutely adore. And you're right in terms of the shoegazy thing. I'll get into that in a second as well. But yeah, I love it. And that metallic industrial noise that you mentioned with the dun 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 bit as well, you're quite right. It provokes a reaction, and I'm not quite sure what that reaction is. I can't pinpoint it, but it does make you feel something. It's really interesting because it's quite an unusual noise.
It's both industrial, and it's another thing which is almost antithetical to the word industrial, and that is it's primal. Because like you think primal, you think preceding any sort of industry or industrialism, right? But and so you get less of the metallic mechanical type aspect to it, but but viscerally there's this primal, like, to the pounding drums that engages you. But then the tone itself has this mechanical, like, metallic industrial sound to it. So it's a weird coupling of emotions, or whatever it evokes in me is towing the line between primal, visceral reaction and just drawn to this very metallic, industrially type sound that's happening with the guitar.
Yeah. I think you're right there, because there's sort of, as you say, that metallic industrial sound, but the way it kind of communicates you is subconscious or sub logic, is straight in core emotional. So that's that primal bit. Yeah, gotcha. So I absolutely adore this. I adore this album. Funny enough, I actually really, in the last 6 months, really getting into the next album after this even more, which I, was like so about for such a long time. But hey ho, that's why I say that time changes your opinions of things as well. So Swirlies, stupid name for such a wonderfully sounding band, but there you go. As I think we discussed off camera, it just sounds like those ice creams you get out of the ice cream machine, Swirlies. And I certainly don't think like that.
Here in the States, a swirly is like, or the phrase swirly is usually means like when someone holds you upside down into a toilet and dips your head into the toilet water, you're getting a swirly. So yes, you either think of soft serve ice cream or being bullied in middle school.
Yeah. We used to call it a bog wash.
Oh, that's far better than a swirly.
And you used to get bog washes for your birthday. And depending on how much they liked you, they would either flush the toilet before or not. So you can get a clean or a dirty bog wash. Yeah. Full of tradition, Ireland. Anyway, so Swirlies, formed in Boston, 1990. They've been described as indie rock, lo-fi, slacker rock, shoegaze, and noise pop. I'm not quite sure what noise pop is, but that sounds more fitting for some reason. As you said, Damon Tuntunjian on guitar, vocals, Casio VL5, Mini Moog, and Chamberlain. I don't know what a Chamberlain is, but it says in brackets, incorrectly listed in the liner notes as a Mellotron. And basically, Shana Kamodi, she does the same thing, but she doesn't play the Casio. And she also did the Chamberlain, which was also incorrectly listed in the line notes as a Mellotron, blah, blah, blah. And the Burdick on bass and radio, I guess that's effects, and Ben Drucker on drums. So Tuntunjian and Comedy met through a mutual friend, and they formed a band called Raspberry Bang, of course. Tried some stuff, and then they enrolled Bennett, who I believe was his old school friend of Tuntunjian, and Drucker. The band made some 8-track home recordings and did a couple of self and indie releases before signing to Tang Records, and Tang is with 2 A's and an exclamation mark at the end. So signed in 1992. They did a mini album of previous releases before their debut album, Londerton Audio Pattern, and then very quickly after an EP of like alternative versions of some of the tracks, and called Broke Dick Car EP, which is wonderful. So I'd say that, as you've said as well, this is their most acclaimed work, and it's been quoted as seen as the lo-fi answer to My Bloody Valentine's Loveless. And that sort of disparity that you mentioned with these sweet, almost ineffectual lyrics, the way they're sung, quite farty, it very much fits in with My Bloody Valentine. I mean, I've got the lyrics to this song, but the lyrics to My Bloody Valentine's are a joke. There is that story that when they were putting out Loveless, somebody in the record, I think it was like a PA to somebody else, asked for it, and Shields wrote down a load of lyrics which they then published as the lyrics, and they're all wrong. He just made it up on the spot. but no one can tell that because you can't really hear the words. It's quite funny.
Right, how do you call someone
One of
out on
those
that?
stories. I don't know how true it is, but it's one of those stories. So yeah, AllMusic called this album a mainstay of early 90s indie music. Oh, of course they would. And in 2016, Pitchfork ranked it as number 11 on its list of 50 best shoegaze albums of all time. However, I have massive issue with their list because Swerve Drive is way too high. They've got the top 3 probably right, but they got Verbs bloody Storming Heaven as a shoegaze album at number 6, and it's not a fucking shoegaze album. It's a psychedelic rock album. Idiots. So what do they know? Anyway, enough about my disdain for that particular website and all it was doing. The album takes its name from an obscure and expensive audiographic equalizer made by Blonder Tongue Labs from 1959 to 1961, and it was used extensively while tracking this album, naturally. And one of the tracks on this album is called Park the Car, brackets, by the side of the road, which is named from the opening lyrics of the Smiths song, That Joke Isn't Funny Anymore. So, kudos to them for that. So, after they finished this, Drucker left. Bernick went off to college for a semester before returning. They toured, supporting the album. Then Commodity left and set up her own band. Loads more personnel shifts occurred over the years, with Tuntugin the only constant member. Their sound was labelled at one point shoegaze and also chimp rock. So they came up with their own genre label from the title of their 1995 EP, Sneaky Flutes and Sneaky Flute Music. And Sneaky Flute Empire is the name of their own record label. I've got to love a band that comes up with their own genre name as Sneaky Flute Music. I think absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
so the next
Flute was pretty sneaky on that last track. I barely even heard it.
In and out without anyone even noticing. The next album, 1996, is They Spent Their Wild Youthful Days in the Glittering World of the Salons. Snappy little title. It was also highly acclaimed. And what they started to do was introduce some electronica and some krautrock into their, expanding their sound. And I absolutely adore that album as well. It's really, just as I say, it's really growing on me, and I love it. I might, if you're not familiar with that one, I might give you a track off that because there's some absolute bangers. Another 3 albums followed, and they just, and so the last album they actually put out was in 2003, and their last EP they put out was in 2018. And although inactive, the band has never officially split up. Although Tuntugin continues to work with other artists and projects, he's guested on other stuff, and he produces as well. So he's still doing stuff here and there.
He's wearing a lot of hats.
Yeah, I will give you now the lyrics, because I'm sure you got them all, but just in case. So, Christmas stevedore, a basement hall, a broken jaw. The Empire clock hangs up over there. And it's got my notes, brackets, instrumental refrain. And then wettish windowsill, drying shell on sleeping pills. He's downstairs. She dreamed of artistic freedom. Instrumental refrain. Bridge, which goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Instrumental breakdown, outro. I'm going to jump the shit. I'll kick the shit out of any cocksucker or kills. He doesn't really sound like he's much of a major threat, the guy who's saying that.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, I called them idle threats because it's like I don't really feel threatened by what he intends to be a threat.
One arm behind your back, sort of, just hold.
Yeah, stay over there, pal.
Oh yeah. Interesting lyrics. They're kind of all over the shop, really, aren't they? So yeah.
Well, it sounds like the scene, like the picture is being painted of a scene where like a wet windowsill, something's lying over there. Here's this person who just had a domestic violence situation, perhaps, or something to that effect, because like she had dreams, there's a broken jaw apparently. If you piece all this shit together like forensically, it sounds like the setting in the wake of some sort of dispute between probably spouses or something like that, or a couple of some sort.
And of course, what always happens in this is the appearance of the Christmas stevedore, you know.
Yeah, well, you know, it was going to be him or Jesus, so.
Yeah. Are stevedores vampires? I don't know.
At least zombies. Are all vampires zombies? I mean, they're the undead and they feed off human DNA. They're kind of adjacent at the very least.
My wife and her best friend argue for hours about all the scenarios that go through how they can survive this zombie apocalypse. And I have to point out that they would be the first ones fucking dead. And secondly, it's not real, you idiots. Because they're arguing about which coast to go to and shit, and how they're going to get fresh water. Anyway.
At least somebody in that house will be prepared, John. I mean,
no, I'm going straight zombie mode. They are the most fun. I'm not going to be running. I'm going to be knomping down on brain. Anyway, back to the song. Right, I'll wrap things up. Thanks for listening to this, and I'm glad you got a chance to sort of dip into
that was cool.
The other remnants of this album, feasting on them like a hungry old zombie. And folks out there, let us know what you think about Swirlies and Jeremy Parker in particular. If you like this song, hit the like button. Let us know. Drop some comments about other Swirly tracks that you like. I kind of have only passing knowledge of their latest stuff. It seemed to sort of not really hit the mark with me, but so maybe if anyone's more familiar with it, you can drop some comments about what's better, their later tracks to listen to. The aforementioned 2 albums I'm really familiar with. So, but yeah, drop some comments. I'd love to hear from you what you think of this track and the Swirly output. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. You've got a very short amount of time before the zombie apocalypse to subscribe. So I don't want you missing out on all the prescribed subscriber shelters that the Audiophiles will provide come that apocalypse. Or no, empty shopping malls as well. Always good. That being said, thanks so much for watching, and we will see all of you on the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.